Welcome to Your Business, Your Wealth. My name is Paul Adams. I am so excited to be back with all of you, and I'm super excited to be back with Corey Shepard. We took a couple of months off, rethought the show, took some time. I traveled the country a little bit, but Corey Shepard joining us as always.
Hello.
From an undisclosed location in Port Angeles, Washington. And the day that I debut my new studio, that my interior designer was so kind to do while I was out of town, Corey Shepard decides to stand me up with the amazing view behind him.
An even more amazing view is I can see Canada from here on the other side. The camera wouldn't pick it up because it's just a little far away. But yeah, Paul, it's been a long, cold, lonely summer, and it's great to be back. I'm so excited.
Well, I'm excited too.
Good content.
I am, and this a bit of an idea Corey and I had for what we might do for the regular weekly show is getting a chance to dig into what we all get exposed to every day. We've done so many articles or podcasts on the ways that we can think more effectively about money, but not enough time in contrasting that against what we read every day in our media. So one of the things we're going to do today is just kind of poke through some of the major media stories we saw come up in the last couple of weeks and be able to bring that to you and bring some of that same thinking that we have in our prior podcast, but then be able to overlay that on the traditional thinking that's being pushed to us by the financial media. Anything else to say about that, Corey?
No, this is going to be great. We're just all steeped in that. All those headlines and those messages every day. And so I'm just really excited to cut through all this and just help everyone think about how to read what's out there. Some of it's really great and really useful. We just have to have that lens. So let's dive in. You bet.
Well, just for fun, I am going to give people a little bit of inside baseball. I got a totally new setup for the podcasting and recording while
He's so excited
everyone's
about
done. Oh my gosh. So I'm going to show you guys something really cool I'm very excited about. At the push of a button now, I can do this. That's right. I just dropped myself into the lower left-hand corner of the screen for those of you just listening to the podcast. And I can also put Corey down there so that he can comment directly on whatever we're talking about. So wish us luck as I attempt to do all the switching.
I can't see whatever he's showing you in the moment. Like, I'm just kind of riding blind. So whatever comes up on that screen.
So
you and I are along for the ride, everyone.
Corey, I'm going to bring up the article you first wanted to talk about, the financial advice from the Furry Convention. We'll go to that one first. All right. So our first article up is many 401k investors don't use target funds the right way. This is from July 13th in CNBC. Now, high level in this article is it talks about that how target date funds often get co-owned with other funds that people have in their 401k. Now, Corey, maybe share with people a little bit about what we've seen on the ground, actually talking to clients about what they're investing in and that kind of that first application when somebody first comes on as a client with us.
So, first of all, target date fund, just a little bit about what that is. It puts together a lot of different investments, multiple different mutual funds inside of that one target date fund, and you pick the year that's closest to when you want to retire, and it slowly makes you less risky along the way. More bonds, less stocks, basically. So, we used to try to help folks recreate a perfect allocation in their 401k like we would do in their own individual portfolio, but all those different funds are working in different ways. They're not really made to go well together. So we've largely steered folks towards those target date funds. But here's what's funny. If you're using a target date fund and several other funds at the same time, it's kind of like you put a space heater next to your window AC unit in the room, right? They're like pushing and pulling, working against each other because they're all trying to do different things. So that's why I really love this article, and I'm glad we started with one that was like a good article for people to read. It's not all about just taking everybody apart. This is great advice.
I know this is usually my job, is the taking people apart. And Corey, I don't appreciate you telling the story about my AC unit and my heater here in the studio running at the same time.
Did you do that? I didn't know.
Well, because the little heater is so small, I didn't think about it. And then when it started getting hot this summer, I turned on the AC unit, walked back in the house, came back out, and I'm like, I would think it should be cooler by now. And so I turned off the AC to see if it was just blowing fan. And once the cooling part of the unit shut off, I heard the other fan running, and I thought, is my computer really hot? Nope, it was a space heater.
That's great.
All right. So let's roll down in this article just a little bit. Mm-hmm. So these have gotten much more popular. One of the big things that increased the popularity of these target date funds is that in 2006, employers could pick a default option for people auto-enrolling in their 401k. Some new legislation came out. And what that allowed people to do is you start with your employer. The employer says at your 6-month period, we auto-enroll you in the 401k, and we just pick a target date fund for you. But then people go in and pick other funds. Now, the funny thing is, most of the assets held in 401k are held the most by these target date funds, about 24% total. But
that reminds me of something, Paul. Oh my gosh. For anyone listening and thinking about making changes to your 401k, remember there's usually 2 moves you have to make. The current assets that you have in there, where they're going, and then what your next contribution is going to do with the ongoing new money. You have to change it twice. So that's the other problem that folks can run into. Sorry, I just thought of that.
That's perfect. And they even give an example here in the article. If you guys want to look it up, we'll link them in the description. The availability of target date funds has gone up a lot, but the big purpose that Corey talked about earlier is it's supposed to get more conservative as you age. Now, here's the problem. More conservative while you age may not be appropriate for you. Now, let me explain. Many of the financial world's philosophies have revolved around the fact that you want to have less risk when you're older, because it used to be, like when I started in the industry 24 years ago, it was kind of the expectation you're going to die, 10 years into retirement, give or take. Well, the trouble is now we can live so long in a retirement that if you get incredibly conservative at age 65, you might outlive your money by virtue of inflation wearing against your capital as opposed to running out of money because you didn't have enough money.
I think this is no less a form of age abuse or age discrimination than people who feel like, they have to dye their hair to get the gray out in a job interview. Just saying, oh, you're older, you have to have more bonds in your portfolio. That there's so many reasons why that may not be the case, depending on how you've built your balance sheet.
And so one of the things that we teach our clients that are pretty simple is all we need to do is select a target date fund that meets the allocation we want. And then we just watch the target date fund to see when they get more conservative, and then you can back out to the next target date, which is usually every 5 years in most 401ks. So the 2040 Vanguard retirement fund might be the right allocation for you now, but in 3 years, we might want to be in the 2045 fund. So that's the only thing to watch if you're going to set it and forget it. It's not set it and forget it. It's set it, check back in 24 to 36 months. And make sure it's still what you thought it was before you go on to just allocate your other money and not think about your 401k at all. So that's it. So that is this target retirement funds, how they work, how they're talked about in the media. And again, to Corey's point, not a bad article. Might be a little bit incomplete about how to use the target date funds to keep an allocation over time. So if you wanted to be 80% stock, 20% bond, you might have to keep pushing the date out to keep up with that, but still can be a great automated way to manage your 401k and assure that it's rebalancing on a consistent, ongoing basis. Anything else on that one, Corey?
No, love it. Let's keep moving.
All right. Now this one, I almost wanted to take this one out last second and sub it for another one. But Corey brought up some great points about this article. So I'm going to bring that up here, Corey. You're on screen. The ultra rich are saving their money instead of spending it. Now the middle class is buried in debt.
So I love this is an example as a contrast to our first article, because it really illustrates how the headline doesn't always tell you what the bulk of the article is talking about. Now, it should. When I went to journalism school, that's what no, I didn't.
That is totally what they taught Corey. They're like, Corey, when you're a financial journalist, what you should do is...
Now, here's what they explained. A lot of the ultra-wealthy, the top 10th of a 1%, the Jeff Bezos and the Bill Gates and all those folks have a ton of their money just sitting in banks, sitting in cash and savings accounts. And so the banks have all this extra money on hand. They want to do something with it to earn money. So they want to get mortgages out, loans out, and student loans, credit cards, all these things that they can do with that money to earn. And so basically the article is saying, because those two things are the case, the middle class have all kinds of debt. Now, it does make mortgages more accessible, and so maybe more people are getting a bigger house than they thought that they would have, but it's not the rich's fault, it's not the wealthy's fault, it's not the bank's fault, it's no one's fault. It's like no one's holding a gun to anyone's head to get more of a loan. It's just these are things that are happening. If anything, it's more the bank's marketing that would be causing this to happen, not any one person. So that really got me as I was reading it. And that's why, thank you, Paul, for indulging me and letting me put this in here. This is one of, I think, the big things we'll come back to time and time again is, does the headline actually match what the article actually says? Because they don't give any reasons why the rich are doing anything to change our lives.
Well, the other thing that stands out for me in this article, Corey, is the fact that when I read the headline, the thing I immediately thought it was going to talk about is where these ultra wealthy are putting their money, like as an insight to people, which, by the way, most of the time the insights are incorrect. Right. So for the record, no different than if you're an expert in something and you read an article about it from a major journal, it is pretty darn likely that it's going to be inaccurate to you as the expert in that field. But there's this thing called Gell-Mann amnesia. Corey, you and I've talked about this before, yeah? Mm-hmm. And so the Gell-Mann amnesia is you're reading an article and you're an engineer and you read an article about engineering. You're like, this journalist has no idea what they're talking about on this. But then you turn the page and it's like the Israeli and Palestinian conflict. Now, you just read an article where a person who writes on engineering all the time didn't know what they were talking about, but you'll move to another article and instantly view that journalist as credible. Same thing with money. Yeah. A lot of these journalists aren't operating in this every single day, or they're an observer of it, which is just different and can be inaccurate. Doesn't always. And that's why we're going to help vet through some of these so that you all become even more critical readers of this financial media, because, I mean, face it, it's bad enough in the media that we can get someone who we love to death for many, many years, and suddenly they're a friend that we can't talk to because of whatever conflict that may be media fed between those two people. But when it comes to our money, like, this is life or death. And when I say life or death, it's like us taking good care of our money means we live, in all likelihood, longer, happier lives. Now, this doesn't mean getting rich. This doesn't mean becoming incredibly wealthy. This isn't superfluence. This is just you being in the position that you can take care of your long-term financial aims, healthcare, food, housing, all that. It is life or death. You will not live as long. And so that's why we want to make sure, as a part of this regular show, we're talking about what's in the media and making it really on the ground applicable for you today, based upon what the media is just, I don't know, firing at us almost, it seems like. So,
you know, Paul, one last thing on this article. Mm-hmm. I can't believe I didn't think of this from the very beginning. Jeff Bezos is pictured at the beginning of this article as one of the examples. Well, I don't think he has very much of his net worth in cash anyway. He has the bulk of his fortune in Amazon stock, and I'm pretty sure anytime he needs some more money, he calls his friend Jamie at Chase Bank and says, hey, can I have a little extra loan on my Amazon stock, and then goes and uses that money. So this article might be missing everything in entirety, like at least the example that it's giving. So
it wouldn't be uncommon for some of the articles we're going to be looking at that they may get it wrong. So with that, we're going to pivot to our final article. At least this one's kind of my favorite of this week, is the 10 golden rules of becoming a millionaire. So the 10 golden rules of becoming a millionaire. This comes from Money Talks News. It's actually published in April of this year. But we thought it would be kind of fun to walk through these 10 rules and just chat with you guys about them a little bit, just to see kind of what bubbles up, what are the things that are effective, and what are the things that are short and pithy that maybe could have been more effective had they had more space in their article or could have talked about it more at length. So number one is never spend more than you make ever. Now, he talks about the fact that you shouldn't spend more money than you make. Now, that makes sense. It doesn't make sense to many people in practice. People are often spending more than they make. But Corey, we didn't talk about this ahead of time, but I'm kind of curious, just from your perspective, what do you think it is that leads to that most of the time?
Well, I think that people either are making a bunch of decisions all at once, but then add on to some other surprises in life that they weren't thinking of. Like they're like, okay, we're going to buy this house and get these 2 new cars, and then we're going to put our kid in daycare, and then, oh, whoops, we forgot about all these other expenses that are going to be coming. That kind of thing is what happens most of the time. Or it's really just this general like boiling of the frog, where they're not thinking about how all their expenses are rising over time and what that should crowd out, but then they're adding all these expenses that are locked in and refusing to let those expenses crowd out the other spending that they want to do in their life, and so it all just piles on.
When I think that something
that's what I think usually happens.
And something you said there that just kind of hits me is how much part of the discipline comes to what you save is what's left over after you spend, as opposed to what you save or invest comes out at the beginning like a reserve. Like, oh, I only made $200 this week, so I'm going to take 20. Then later, when I'm making $2,000 a week, I'll take 200. And then if I can get to where I'm making $20,000 a week, 2,000 gets set aside. Now that's just a 10% savings rate to make the math easy, but it does scale if it comes out first. So one good way to not break rule number one is to be in a position where you set aside your savings first, your investing money first, your wealth coordination account, as we would call it, first, then allow the other spending decisions to happen secondarily. All right, number 2, avoid debt like the plague. And I want to call your attention to 2 bullets in this article, Corey. One that says 2 reasons you should borrow when you have to in order to survive, and when you'll earn more on what you're financing than what you'll pay to finance it. Now, those are 2 pretty opposite ends of the spectrum.
Right. And that last sentence is, unless borrowing is ultimately going to make you richer, don't do it. Mm-hmm. Which seems like the absolute near opposite of avoid debt like the plague.
Yeah. It would be like avoid, like, when would there be a time that you'd be like, hey, I don't mind getting a little bit of the plague? Like, wouldn't be the case. This goes back to something that is pressure on these financial journalists, is that they need to have things that are super clicky, which is why you've got to read into the context a little bit more. Never take the headline, because the headline wasn't designed for you to learn something. It was designed for different purposes. All right, let's hit the next one. Buy when everyone's freaking out and sell when everyone thinks that they can't lose. Now, this is the first one that I think leads people astray, Corey, because it leaves you in the position. Now, if it said simply, buy when everyone's freaking out, good. I'm good with that. Like, we made clients a ton of money for the ones that listened to us when we called them In late March, specifically, the bottom of the market was March 23rd. We're calling all the later half of March our clients. If you have cash, get it into the market. The market's climbed north of 60% since then in just a little over a year. So I like the first part.
Where you're going with that is we didn't tell all of our clients to hoard cash for the last 5 years until a great time to buy and then put it in. No, it was, if you have cash that was already going to be going into the market at some time in the future, put it in now. Let's just increase that a little bit. I think that's where you're getting to next, Paul.
Exactly right. Yeah, because the second part is, it says right here, and sell when everyone thinks they can't lose. That is right into market timing. This is an example of, it could be good advice, except the way that they're couching it leaves space for us to do something that isn't going to be good for us, which is trying to time the market. Meaning, I'm going to buy at a certain time, I'm going to sell at a certain time. Those clients we reached out to were clients that like, I never did take that, $300,000 I had set aside and invested it, or the $1 million that was in my company, I haven't distributed it yet. Those kinds of conversations that people just hadn't taken action in getting it done yet. That's when you do it. The key is buy ahead of time. Okay. In the interest of time, Corey, I'm going to keep us moving here, which is a phrase Corey almost never hears from me. Number 4, you can either so excited. You can look rich. Never been prouder in my life. You can either look rich or be rich, and I'm going to let you take this one, Corey.
I love this one. The first thing he says when this person worked as a Wall Street investment advisor, and they quickly learn that people who have tons of money most often don't look like it. They don't have to, and that's really is true. I think of Stop Acting Rich and The Millionaire Next Door by Thomas Stanley, and the like ultra wealthy farmer, I think it was, who came to the Manhattan conference room they had set up to survey wealthy folks, and they're like, giant spread, and like, what would you like to drink? And he's like, well, I drink 2 kinds of beer, free and Budweiser. And I just thought that was so amazing. I mean, I spend a lot more money on beer than that guy. But I can learn something from him, and that's, spend on what's important to you and makes your life feel good, and don't feel like you have to spend just to look good for other people, because the other people that look the shiniest on the outside are very often the hollowest on the inside of their balance sheet.
You make a fine point, and I'll add one thing to that, which is, we look at clients, and this may sound a little bit funny, but I would rather have as a client somebody who lives off $100,000 a year and has $2.5 million in assets than somebody that lives off of, $800,000 a year and has $6 million to invest. Because one of those people, the lower consuming one with the lower assets, they're very near being a point that we can help those assets sustain their financial aims throughout a lifetime. The person who has a lot more capital to invest, but also has this much higher rate of consumption, much more difficult to get that person to their financial aims, because there's significant, what you've heard us talk about, in lifestyle addiction. All right, let's get our next one. Live like you'll die tomorrow, but invest like you'll live forever. Now, my favorite part about this one, Corey, is you look at the text, it's like, this could be the name of a book and fill a book by itself, but it says, like, the couple of sentences after, I think, would fit in a tweet. Like, a topic that could be handled for a long time. But go.
Oh, it's also in contradiction to that, buy when everyone else is freaking out, sell when everyone else is excited. Because you would, if you were living like you're going to live, invest like you'll live forever, you're going to put money in and basically never take it out, right? Except for some income. So, yeah, I think this one was a filler to round out the
10. Like, they went back in, they're like, if we make that one number 10, it'll be suspicious. So what we have to do is make it number 5, so no one knows it's our filler one. Now, I really like this one. There are only 6 ways to get rich. Marry money. That one didn't work for me. Inherit money. Also didn't work for me.
Yeah.
Exploit a unique talent. I don't know. I can't spin plates on poles like the vaudeville shows I used to watch as a kid. Nick at Night, I realized, really helped me a lot with my culturation as a kid. If culturation's a word, if culturation's not a word, then I just prove the point of me having no culture, I suppose. Get exceedingly lucky. That's a hard one to plan for.
I've been to a casino with you, Paul, and that's not working out well for either of us.
Own or lead a successful business and spend less than you make. Invest your savings wisely over long periods of time. Now, all of those things are true, but here's the other things I would also have be clear. Numbers 1 through 5 are not guaranteed. Marry money. There are a lot of people that marry money and end up poor. Inherit money. There are lots of people that inherit money and end up poor. Exploit a unique talent. How many people have we seen out in the world that are incredibly talented? The NFL star, the hockey player. Actually, hockey players tend to do better than most with their money, it seems. Basketball players, etc. Huge amounts of money come in and they end up bankrupt, destitute, out of the news, etc. Own or lead a successful business. Or get exceedingly lucky, I skipped. But own or lead a successful business is like, well, that one also could mean you have a lavish lifestyle for many, many years. But if you haven't positioned enough money on your personal balance sheet, you're not going to make it. Only one of these is the one that actually works to stay rich.
Yeah. Or the other, that's how I would put it. All of them work, but 1 through 5 also require 6 to stay there. And no one wants to be rich for just 1 minute and then be gone. It's like, 1 through 5 work, but they all require 6 as well.
Indeed. All right. Number 7, we have the riskiest thing you can do is take no risk.
Now, this is novel. This is clever.
Yes.
I like that title.
So, Corey, what do you think he means by that?
Well, you're always taking a risk. And if someone says, I don't want to invest any of my money, I just want it perfectly safe, I'm going to bury it under my mattress and in my backyard, well then now you're taking fire risk, earthquake risk, forgetfulness risk. And the biggest one is an inflation risk. If your money's not growing at all, it's actually getting smaller. Even if that dollar or that coin is just sitting right there in your bedroom, it might not burn up, but it is diminishing.
Well, and so, to that point, it's like, the Bible talks about don't store your money where moths eat it away, etc. The moths are inflation. So I'm no biblical scholar, Corey, but I'm going to go with that. Our modern moths are inflation and monetary policy. All right, we're nearing the end of the list. Never make your well-being someone else's responsibility.
Ooh, we've talked about this. Mm-hmm. We've done an episode about needing to be your own fiduciary. You work with a fiduciary advisor. We're fiduciary advisors. We take that seriously. And everyone's got to be their own fiduciary. So I think that's a great one.
Well, I'll tell you, I was just looking up on my computer and got caught on camera doing it. I was going to see if I could figure out very quickly which episode it was, and I couldn't get it to pull up right away. So my attempted quick switch didn't work out.
And they start out, the first section of this one talks about if you need surgery, you have little choice but to trust your fate to a professional. But, even in the medical world, you've got to be your own biggest advocate. And I say that, having married into the medical world. Hospital's a busy place. Doctors, surgeons, they have a lot of people to take care of. You need to be your own best advocate if you're going into the medical system, and same with the financial system. Totally
agree. Number 9, when it comes to information, less can be more. Now, first off, I'd just like to say, ignore this as it relates to the Your Business, Your Wealth podcast or anything written by Corey Shepard or Paul Adams. I'm just going to put that out there. The the author of the article put that in here originally, but he had to remove it. He specifically was like, Your Business, Your Wealth is the one you should listen to every time they release anything. But they ran out of word space, had to cut something. You know how it goes.
I think that the internet has not made it easier for us to make decisions, like more conflicting information, like trying to tell who to listen to. So just Googling 20 articles is not necessarily better than 10 articles. Yeah.
Exactly right. And it's something that we talk about often with our clients is go out, get that information, bring it in, and let's talk about it and see if those things work on your balance sheet, because it may not. Something that works perfectly in an article for the family that the author interviewed may be great for that person in that situation, but it may or may not be great for you given your specific aims and your specific circumstances. So, Corey, number 10, time isn't money. Money is time.
I love this. It's, really what it's saying is use our money wisely, use your balance sheet to support a bigger, more productive life. This, and also the things that we spend money on. This is Your Money or Your Life by Vicki Robin, where she says, like, you want to buy this thing, and this is the article, it's talking, go to the mall and buy clothes. Like, how many hours of your life energy are you trading for this new pair of jeans? And is it worth it to you? Ask that question. Unlike the farmer, a really, really amazing sour or an IPA with some great flavors, like, I will trade some of my life energy for that experience because that's valuable for me. For him, it wasn't. And that's the beauty of us getting to design our lives. But always asking that question, is the thing I'm spending my life energy on worth the trade, is what he's saying here. And I think it's beautiful.
Well, I agree with you. The thing that I like most about that, it's your time or your money, and especially in Vicki Robin's book, Your Money or Your Life, one of the things she discusses is to go down to the brass tacks of what do you actually make. Well, she doesn't use these words, but I would use it. What's the profit on your career? Mm-hmm. Like after you pay for childcare, after you pay for the more expensive house that you probably wouldn't live in otherwise if it wasn't a shorter commute to work, if you didn't have to pay for the second car's car insurance and fuel, if you weren't buying lunches out because you're there rather than home all day, all that, you could find that somebody making $150,000 a year maybe has $50,000 of total expenses totally related to that career. And the other drawback for many people is that $50,000 isn't tax deductible like it would be for a business owner.
Right.
So she really helps people think through the net life energy. So that person that feels like, I'm trying to do quick math in my head, at $150,000 a year, they're making, $75 an hour-ish, something like that. And so, but if your net profit per hour is $50 an hour, the amount that you have to replace to be financially independent isn't the full $75 an hour. And as it would happen, I just lost my camera right in the middle of this.
Is that what happened?
turned off. I don't know. I think I got a little rescue ability here. I'll see if I can do it. Let's see. Hang on. I got Corey on screen, and
I really think we shouldn't edit this one out. Like, I'm just saying we should leave this in.
Oh yeah, we gotta leave this so people can get a sense of what it takes to make this happen. Now, this is the funny thing.
Welcome back, present. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, this is the other camera angle. I have 3 of them here. I could also show you guys this is like the B-roll camera angle where it's just coming in from the side and you can't, it just looks super fancy. But let's go back to Corey and I. And then I think I have to re-add me to be the left of Corey for us to close out this episode. This is wonderful. I am so glad it didn't go wrong earlier. So mental note, make sure that the new Sony ZV-1 camera that you use your webcam is fully charged before starting your day. So that will be noted for next time. So good. Well, we're so glad all of you could join us today. We're looking forward. We're going to be releasing more content that's more of a how-to nature, so you can jump in and get that 3 or 4 minutes you need on how to do a backdoor Roth, or some of the troubles with 401k, or why inflation is a hidden tax. These are all things that are going to come to you in great little bite-sized snippets. They'll probably be more video-oriented, but the ones that will work on podcasts will be dropping to all of the podcasting platforms as usual. And Corey, I just want to pause for a second. What, if anything, do you want to mention to or share with our audience as you're traveling the country right now, getting a chance to show off that new beautiful baby?
Yeah. We haven't been back here in over a year because of the pandemic. And so it just gives me a lot of gratitude for family and friends and everyone we get to see. And I hope everyone listening can just dwell on that a little bit today, of just how lucky we all are if we're in a position to be listening to this on whatever device we're listening to, and wherever we live, that like life is pretty darn good despite anything else that we see in the headlines.
Man, that's well said, Corey. And I don't know why you're able to say it, and it sounds amazing and caring. When I say, I think we all should be thankful that we have this podcast, and it's just proof that this is an amazing world. For some reason, it doesn't roll off my tongue with the same level of empathy and sincerity.
Sounds like my grandpa's yelling at me. Like, yeah.
I'm working on that. I want all of you to know that in this coming year, I'm committing to be less abrasive, and I'm going to become just offensive enough and not be more offensive than necessary in the new year to come on the Your Business, Your Wealth fiscal year. So with that, we hope all of you enjoyed the show. We are so glad to be back. I was chomping at the bit to be able to spend some time with all of you today. Mm-hmm. And we hope, as always, that this episode has been a contribution to you being able to design and build a good life.